A small arts nonprofit organization will be closing its doors next September, following a successful existence of 33 years. During that time, it has helped artists become more visible and recognized. It has allowed young people to find their artistic voice, and it has guided and encouraged state arts organizations to be more accommodating and welcoming to the needs of a significant portion of Minnesota's population. VSA Minnesota, the state organization on arts and disability, the organization I have had the privilege to direct for the past 26 years, is that organization. It is a nonprofit that has never been in the headlines, either for good or bad, but rather is one of the thousands of nonprofits around the state that has quietly and efficiently implemented its mission. In our case, to create a community where Minnesotans with disabilities learn through, participate in, and access the arts. The reasons for closure are many. Some are positive and others not as positive. One positive is that VSA Minnesota, which started in 1986 as Very Special Arts Minnesota, has promoted its mission so well to other arts organizations and agencies that those entities have taken on portions of that mission as their own. When I began as executive director in 1992, there were a handful of organizations in the state providing direct arts programming to individuals with disabilities or significant outreach and accommodation to members of that group. Today, I am extremely happy to point to scores of arts groups in the metro area and across the state that have programs for and provide accommodations to people with disabilities, allowing for full participation and inclusion. This taking on of our mission by other organizations has caused our uniqueness and our fundability to wane. In addition, we are an organization that works in the background. We provide training and resources so that other groups can make their arts programs more accessible to people with disabilities, and we provide information like our Accessible Arts Calendar that allows people with disabilities to have the accommodations they need in order to participate in arts events the rest of us take for granted. Between now and the end of next September, the end of our 2019 fiscal year, John Scollin and I will conduct the programs for which we have received funding. This includes awarding 6 $2,000 grants to artists with disabilities to create new work, distributing $165,000 to metro area arts organizations to make access improvements to their spaces or their programs, and to bring teaching artists into 7 classrooms to work with students with special education needs. Just as importantly, we will work to transfer a number of our programs to new organizational homes. Springboard for the Arts, Compass, and the Metro Regional Arts Council, all in St. Paul, have all agreed to incorporate our artist services, school residency, and ADA improvement grant programs into their respective programs. VSA Minnesota's Board of Directors has worked much of 2018 to evaluate the organization's current and future prospects. Board members heard from John and me, as well as from artists, donors, funders, and representatives from arts, education, and disability organizations. The thoughts expressed indicated a continuing need for the organization's services and the sense that the mission had, as yet, not been accomplished. At the same time, the board looked at the current and future sources of financial support and at my approaching retirement, and determined that continuing the organization was not feasible. The September closure means that my retirement arrives about a year earlier than I had planned, and personally, that will be okay. Professionally, it had been my hope for VSA Minnesota to survive me, because I know that there is still work to do to see this mission to completion. There are still students with disabilities who do not have full access to an education in the arts in their classroom. There are still arts organizations providing programming that is inaccessible to someone who is deaf, or blind, or deaf and blind, or who lives somewhere on the autism spectrum, or who uses a mobility device that is not accommodated at an entrance door, an auditorium space, or a restroom. And adult artists with disabilities that do not have a home, like those whose work is supported at Interact in St. Paul or at Soho Galleries in Hibbing, those artists continue to have major barriers to doing their work, having their work seen and heard, and even earning a portion of their living through the sale of their artistic endeavors. I am proud of the work that my employees and I have done to advance access to the arts by Minnesotans with disabilities over the past 3 decades. I am also gratified that access for people with disabilities has grown to be a shared value held by arts organizations around the state. I look forward to watching the work of Springboard, Compass, and MRAC in the coming years as they continue the work that we have begun. My professional career began in 1979, working as a music therapist in a residential setting with adults with cognitive disabilities. The following year, I began work as a music educator and music therapist working with students with cognitive disabilities, first in a school outside Milwaukee, and in 1984 in the Anoka-Hennepin system here in Minnesota. In 1992, when funding was cut for my Anoka-Hennepin position, the executive director position came open at Very Special Arts Minnesota, an organization for which I had been serving as a board member. The rest, as they say, is history. So, thanks to all my work colleagues, board members, fellow teachers, people with disabilities who love the arts, who have shared this path thus far. I look forward to ending this organization's work with grace, thoughtfulness, and care. And then I look ahead to the next steps in our journey. Valuing the arts is essential for all of us, and making the arts available and accessible to people of all abilities.